Vindman exposes Hegseth's credibility in a way no press conference ever could, by asking one simple question that cut past politics, past talking points, and straight into the heart of leadership. Do you owe a military mother an apology? Because the moment that question landed, everything else stopped mattering. Not the slogans, not the spin, not even the so-called success of the mission. What mattered was this. A parent believed her son's life had been put at risk, and the person at the very top of the chain of command refused to say he was sorry.
Back. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Vindman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask unanimous consent to submit for the record an article. A distinguished member of this committee,
Without objection, so ordered.
confirmed that there was, in fact, a pause in offensive cyber operations earlier this year. The SecDef just denied this. This committee deserves to know whether the Secretary just lied. Mr. Secretary, many believed you were underqualified for this role. You've been Secretary for 4.5 months now. For the sake of the American people and our service members, I hope you've done your homework since. Let's talk Indo-PACOM. What year has the Navy publicly set as the benchmark for being ready to fight a war with China?
Well, it needs to be right now. We know what China has said.
I'm glad to hear that, but there is a
it's right
publicly
now.
set date.
Well, we know it wouldn't be
Let me help you
prudent
out.
for me in this environment to
2027.
reveal when we think we're ready. That's what China has said, and we understand what they're
Secretary,
saying,
I
and
asked
we want
for
to
a
be
year.
capable and ready for it.
Not a filibuster. 2027 is the year. According to unclassified DoD assessments, how many warships does China have in its Navy today?
Many and growing.
370. It's the largest Navy in the world. How many does the U.S. Navy have today?
Thanks to this budget, it's increasing
It's a number. I'm looking for
substantially,
a number.
but it's just south of 300.
296, pretty close. How many ships is China expected to field by 2030?
I believe that's a classified number, but it's going to go
There's a
up
DoD
at a rapid rate.
CMPR report that was released. There's an unclassified number.
It's going up at a rapid rate.
Let me help you out. 435. Let's see if we do better in EUCOM. What corridor in eastern Poland is vulnerable and a priority for U.S. reinforcements? It connects Belarus to a Russian region.
I'm sure you can tell me.
I can tell you. It's the Suwalki Gap. Which heavily militarized Russian territory connected the Suwalki Gap? It contains nuclear-capable missiles. It threatens all of NATO. It's right there in the middle of Eastern Europe.
I see we're playing a quiz game here.
It's
Ultimately,
Kaliningrad
thankfully,
Oblast.
we're
Let
getting
me-
our NATO allies to step up in their spending to make sure that they can hold the
Mr.
line.
Secretary, I asked you a specific question. Thank you. It's Kaliningrad Oblast. So what percentage of Ukrainian frontline casualties, let's talk drones, are now caused by FPV drones?
A very large percentage, and we're studying that conflict closely to understand
I hope so.
that fact.
It's over 70%. And which U.S. service has written doctrine or standardized procurement for integration of FPV drones?
That's the Army.
I wish that were the case, but actually the answer is none of them. So we're not prepared yet, and we need to get there fast. Let me turn to a different topic. A few weeks ago, when my office opened up in Fredericksburg, I spoke to the mother of one F-18 pilot who flew the March 15th mission over the Red Sea in Yemen that you discussed over Signal. I spoke to her again on Tuesday and asked her if there was anything she wanted me to bring up. She believes that you need to resign. She also had several questions, but one thing, she said she would appreciate an apology for putting classified information. Her son couldn't even tell her where the Truman was going, but into the Houthi PC small group signal chat that risked her son's life and the mission. Mr. Secretary, yes or no, do you think you owe her an apology?
Please make sure to let her know how grateful we are for the skill and heroism of her.
I am very much grateful. I'm sure everybody in this room is grateful. I'm proud of what her son has done. The question is, do you owe her an apology for your actions? Are you going to be accountable?
It was an incredibly successful mission. Her son did great
They
work.
did a magnificent
and
job.
Thankfully, the Houthi campaign was successful.
Secretary, I agree with you. Magnificent job. The performance of those pilots and Navy personnel, magnificent. We're talking about what you did and accountability. Are you going to apologize to the mother or not?
I don't apologize for success.
You don't apologize for putting her son's life in danger and for putting the mission in jeopardy. Well, that's really disappointing and not befitting the type of leadership that our troops and families deserve. It's frankly a stunning lack of OPSEC. Privates are trained to do much better than that. It was reckless. And it sounds like that accountability doesn't extend as far as the Secretary of Defense. So I think you should resign. The mother says she wants you gone. And with that, I yield back.
Gentlemen,
And if that sounds uncomfortable, that's because it should be. This wasn't a viral clip engineered for outrage. It was a live test of judgment, accountability, and whether responsibility still means anything at the highest level of the Pentagon. And what happened next only made the stakes clearer. Vindman didn't walk into that hearing looking for a soundbite. He came in with a purpose, and you could feel it from the first exchange. This wasn't the kind of questioning designed to score points or dominate headlines. It was methodical, almost clinical, the kind of approach you use when you want the record to speak for itself. And right away, he framed the moment in a way that stripped away any attempt to dismiss what followed as routine oversight. This was about competence, about preparedness, about whether the person entrusted with the most powerful military in the world actually understood the realities shaping it. He started by saying what many had already been whispering since the nomination. Questions about qualifications didn't come from ideology, they came from the job description. The Secretary of Defense isn't a ceremonial role. It's not a place to learn the basics in real time. It's a position that demands immediate command of threats, timelines, capabilities, and vulnerabilities, because decisions made at that level ripple outward to real people in real danger. And then Vindman began to test that expectation that he asked about the Indo-Pacific, not in vague terms, not in abstractions, but with specifics. When has the Navy publicly set its benchmark for being ready to fight a potential war with China? This isn't trivia. This date underpins strategy, budgeting, force posture, and deterrence. The response was evasive, a deflection toward urgency without answering the actual question. Vindman pushed again and finally supplied the answer himself, 2027, a date that has been openly discussed in unclassified assessments. The point wasn't to embarrass. It was to establish a pattern. Next came ship counts. How many warships does China currently have? The answer should have come instantly. Instead, it was vague, many and growing. Vindman again filled in the blank, roughly 370, making it the largest navy in the world. Then he asked about the U.S. Navy. The response hovered around just south of 300. Close, but not precise. Vindman corrected it, 296. These aren't numbers pulled from obscure briefings. They're foundational facts that inform everything from procurement to deterrence messaging. And then he moved forward in time. How many ships is China expected to field by 2030? Again, hesitation. A suggestion that the number might be classified. Vindman countered calmly. There is an unclassified projection. Around 435. What was unfolding wasn't a quiz show. It was documentation. A step-by-step record showing that the person responsible for managing America's military posture appeared unfamiliar with the most basic metrics defining the global balance of power. The questioning didn't stop there. Vindman shifted to geography because wars aren't fought on spreadsheets. He asked about a specific corridor in Eastern Europe that's widely recognized as a critical vulnerability for NATO reinforcement. A narrow stretch of land connecting hostile territory, heavily militarized, and central to alliance defense planning. The answer should have been immediate. Instead, there was uncertainty. Vindman supplied it, the Suwalki Gap, a place that has been war-gamed, analyzed, and discussed for years because of the threat it poses to regional stability. This wasn't about catching someone off guard. These are the kinds of details senior defense leaders are expected to carry with them instinctively, because they shape how resources are allocated and how allies assess credibility. Vindman made that clear by continuing, not with condemnation, but with context. He explained why these points matter, why knowing them isn't optional, why uncertainty at the top creates risk all the way down the chain. Then he pivoted to modern warfare. Drones, specifically FPV drones, and how they've reshaped frontline combat. Vindman asked what percentage of Ukrainian frontline casualties are now caused by these systems. The response acknowledged that it was a large percentage and that the conflict was being studied. Vindman provided the number, over 70%. Then came the follow-up that landed hardest. Which U.S. service currently has written doctrine or standardized procurement for integrating FPV drones? The answer given was the Army. Vindman corrected it. None of them do. That moment mattered because it exposed something deeper than a knowledge gap. It showed a lag between battlefield reality and institutional readiness, a delay that could cost lives if not addressed quickly. Vindman wasn't arguing policy. He was highlighting urgency. And by this point, a pattern had emerged too clearly to ignore. On dates, numbers, geography, and emerging threats, Vindman wasn't being answered. He was answering. But the most serious part of the hearing hadn't even begun yet. After laying out the competence issues, Vindman shifted the focus from theory to consequence. From what could happen to what already might have. He introduced a real-world situation involving sensitive mission details that had allegedly been shared on a private messaging platform. He was careful. He didn't dramatize. He didn't accuse. He framed it as a concern, one with potential operational risk. And then he brought it down to the level that cuts through every abstraction. A mother. Vindman explained that he had spoken with the parent of an F-18 pilot who flew a specific mission that had been discussed in those messages. He had spoken to her again recently and asked what, if anything, she wanted conveyed. Her answer wasn't ideological. It wasn't partisan. She didn't ask for hearings or headlines. She asked for accountability. And she said she believed the secretary should resign. Not out of spite, but because trust had been broken. Most of all, she wanted an apology. That request changed the temperature in the room. Because suddenly this wasn't about doctrine or ship counts. It was about whether leadership recognizes the human cost of its decisions. Vindman made that explicit. He pointed out that her son couldn't even tell her where his carrier was going, yet sensitive details had appeared elsewhere. To her, that felt like a double standard. And then Vindman asked the most direct question of the entire hearing. Yes or no? Do you think you owe her an apology? This was the moment where the entire exchange crystallized. Because apologizing wouldn't have undone anything. It wouldn't have admitted guilt in a legal sense. It wouldn't have compromised classified information. It would have simply acknowledged that a parent's fear was valid, and that responsibility at the top includes owning risk when things go wrong. Instead, the response deflected. Gratitude for the pilot's service. Praise for the mission. Repetition of success. But no apology. When pressed again, the answer was even clearer. I don't apologize for success. That line landed like a thud, because no one was asking him to apologize for success. Vindman said so plainly. The mission's outcome wasn't in dispute. The pilot's performance wasn't in question. What was being asked was whether leadership would take responsibility for its own actions, separate from the bravery of those ordered to carry them out. Vindman pushed one last time, and the refusal held. No apology. No acknowledgement of error. Just a restatement of outcomes. And that's when Vindman said the words that had been building throughout the hearing. He believed the secretary should resign. This wasn't a spontaneous outburst. It was the logical conclusion of everything that had come before. A documented lack of command over basic strategic facts. A pattern of evasion. And finally, a refusal to meet the most basic expectation of leadership when confronted with a military family asking for accountability. Vindman explained why it mattered. In the military, mishandling sensitive information has consequences. Privates are trained on it. Officers are disciplined for it. Accountability is drilled into the culture from day one. When the standard suddenly stops at the very top, it sends a message that undermines trust across the entire force. And that's why this hearing resonated far beyond the room. It wasn't about politics. It was about whether the people making decisions understand the weight of what they hold. Whether they recognize that authority without accountability isn't strength. It's risk. By the time Vindman yielded back, the case had already been made. Not with insults, not with theatrics, but with facts, patterns, and a single unanswered question that said more than any speech ever could. Do you owe her an apology? For many watching, the refusal to answer wasn't just disappointing. It was disqualifying. Because leadership at that level isn't measured by how well you defend success. It's measured by how you respond when something goes wrong, when trust is shaken, and when the people who bear the consequences are asking to be heard. This moment will likely be replayed and debated. But its meaning is simple. Competence matters. Preparation matters. And accountability matters most when it's hardest to offer. especially to the families who live with the consequences long after the cameras are gone. If you want more breakdowns that go beyond the headlines and explain why moments like this actually matter, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with anyone who cares about leadership, accountability, and what those words are supposed to mean.